All right, guys, let's pick up where we left off last time. So we left off last time. We created a function, all right, that was going to go ahead and register every time we tapped on the screen. It was going to pick up where we tapped, all right, and then from there we were going to determine the label. We were going to place a value into each label. So we left off with an error in our code because we said, if the label contained a point on the grid, we want to place a value into it. So we created this function, or we called this function, I should say, place value into label. All right, so in this screencast, we're going to create this function, and we're going to give our game the ability to pick up on the taps. So every time we tap the screen, it's either going to be X or O. Okay, so let's go through this here. So again, we got to make sure we're going to check to see if the label is blank. If it's blank, we're going to decide what to do. If it's not blank, it's not going to do anything. Okay, then we're going to determine whose turn it is, and then we'll place the value and then switch the current player. Okay, so let's go through that. So let's create our function. All right, so it's place value into label. Make sure it matches exactly how you have it spelled up here, because this is the function we are creating. We're calling it up here, creating it down here. Okay, so we're going to put a parameter. MyLabel is a type UI label. Okay, and that's going to be the first thing, and then let's just put our curly brace down here. I think this is going to ask for us to put the parameter in there. It is. So it wants my label in the call. So go ahead and just double click on that. Throw my label in there. Okay. So what does this function do? So again, the idea, it's going to check to see if the label's blank. If it's blank, it's going to decide what to do. It's either going to put an X or an O in there. Then it's going to switch the current turn label. So the first thing we got to do is we got to check if my label.text is equal to nothing. So is it empty? All right, so from there, if it's empty, we're now going to check to see what the current turn label is. So if it says if current turn label.text, all right, if that's equal to X, all right, so if the label's blank, then it moves on to check the current turn label. If it's X, all right, my label.text is going to equal X. All right, so if the current turn label's X, okay, my label that's going to show up on our game is going to be X. Then we're going to switch the current turn label.text. That's going to be equal to O, all right, because we're going to toggle over because the next player is O, so that's the current turn. Okay. If that's not the case, we're going to go else. Okay. If my label.text, okay, if it's equal to O, okay, that means that it's either O, then our current turn label.text is going to be equal to X. So it's basically kind of one or the other. Okay, so one option. So now before we run this, we need to go to our storyboard, because I realized before we went through, we're going to go through and run this, but we're not going to see anything. And the reason why is because our label text, I believe, is going to be color. It's going to be white. So obviously white's not going to show up on a white label here. So what we need you to do is go back out and click on each label, go to our font color, change that to black, or you can go to a different color if you like, if you don't want black. Okay, I'm just going to go through and change mine to black. All right, so you're going to have to do this before you run it, because like I said, if you run it without changing it to black, you won't see the thing showing up in the game board, and you're going to think you did something wrong when you didn't. We just need to change the color here. So go through, do that for me. I just switch each of these labels to black. All right, let's give this a run. Let's see what's happening here. All right, let's see if it's picking up the tap and what's happening from there. Okay, so here's our game board. Okay, we click O, X, so you can see every time I click here, it's changing up top there. All right, so it's saying current turns O, so when I click down here, O, current turn X, and so on. So now we're just about there. Okay, the only thing you can notice though is we have no real functionality. There's no game winning kind of screen here. So right now we click and we get to this point where it's kind of a cat's game, but the game's kind of stuck here. Okay, so what we're going to do here, so let's go ahead and close that down, is we need to create a function here. So we need to go through and determine that, okay, we've gone through every time we run the place value into label function, we need to check for a winner every time. All right, so we're going to create this function called check for winner. all right, that we're going to create here. Now, right now, we're going to get an error, okay, because obviously we have not created a function called check for winner. That's going to be the objective of our next screencast, okay. But again, so this function, what we did in this one is we went through and we basically determined when we click, is it going to be X or O? And every time we do that, basically the code's going to read down. It's going to go X or O. It's going to check for winner. If there's no winner, comes back and does this again until, we're going to code this for the winner, so that way when it checks for winner, if it finds it, we're going to be able to find out what that is. All right, so we're going to stop this video at this point. All right, we'll come back here. The kind of the last one we have to do. It's kind of one of the more detailed ones here, so it'll take a little longer. So we'll stop it now. We'll see you in the next one.